People often ask me, what's the secret to your success? And I tell them, it's not what you think. It's not about the awards, the red carpets, the applause. It's about having a purpose. It's about falling down 7 times and getting up 8. It's about faith, about discipline, about knowing who you are and whose you are. See, I've failed. I've doubted myself. I've been broke, but I always knew God had a plan, and I stayed the course. Real success, it's not in the spotlight. It's in the struggle. It's in the grind. It's in the grace. Is the secret to real success. Success is nothing without purpose. That's something I had to learn the hard way. See, there was a time in my life where I didn't have much direction. I was just going through the motions, doing what I thought I was supposed to do. I had talent. Sure, people told me I was gifted, that I had something special. But talent without purpose, that's like having a car with no fuel. You might look good on the outside, but you're not going anywhere. I had to dig deep, look in the mirror, and ask myself a question I think everyone needs to ask. Why am I here? No, do I want, not what can I get, but why was I put on this earth? There's something powerful about understanding your purpose, because once you find it, everything changes. Your walk changes. Your work changes. The way you see failure, the way you handle pressure, it all shifts. I remember being in the middle of a struggle, broke, uncertain, just trying to figure life out. I was living at my mother's place, hanging around the wrong crowds, not really seeing any path for myself. But then something happened. I had a moment where I realized I was living beneath my potential, that I was chasing things that had no meaning. People chase money, fame, power. But I learned early, those things are temporary. They don't fill the void. Purpose does. And let me tell you something, purpose isn't always loud. It doesn't always come with fireworks or applause. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it shows up in a quiet moment when you're alone, when nobody's watching. For me, it came through faith. It came through listening to the voice inside that said, you were made for more. That voice didn't promise it would be easy, but it reminded me that I had a responsibility. Not just to myself, but to the people I could inspire, to the stories I could tell, to the lives I could impact. You can be successful by the world's standards and still be empty inside. I've seen it. I've met people with all the fame and none of the peace. I've seen folks with all the riches and none of the rest. And I've learned that success without purpose is just noise. It doesn't last. What lasts is legacy. What lasts is using your gift to lift others up. What lasts is knowing what you did on this earth mattered, that it meant something. When I started acting, I didn't know it would lead me here. I didn't know the roles I took would speak to people's hearts. I just knew I had something inside me that needed to come out. A story, a fire. And when I connected that fire to purpose, when I decided to use my gift to honor God, to inspire others, to bring truth and power to the screen, that's when everything changed. The doors opened, the path cleared, not because I was chasing success, but because I was walking in purpose. People think success is a destination. It's not. It's a byproduct of purpose. When you do what you're called to do, when you give your all with integrity, when you stay faithful even when nobody's watching, that's success. That's the kind of success that gives you peace at night, that lets you look back with no regrets. So if you're out there wondering what the secret is, don't look around, look within. Find your purpose. Find what sets your soul on fire, and then give it everything you've got. That's where the real success lies. That's where the fulfillment is, and that's a journey worth taking, not just for the world to see, but for your own soul to breathe. That's how I did it. That's how I keep doing it. And if you stay true to your purpose, that's how you'll do it too. Dreams are beautiful, but they're not enough. That's something I had to learn the hard way. When I was young, I had dreams, big ones. I dreamed of performing, of making people feel something when I walked into a room or spoke a line. But for a long time, that's all they were, dreams. I was drifting, getting into trouble, not showing up fully for anything in my life. People saw potential in me, but potential without action is nothing. It's like having a car with no gas. It might look nice, but it's not going anywhere. And that's what I was until I understood the power of discipline. Discipline is what turns those dreams into something real. It's what separates the people who wish for things from the ones who work for them. And let me tell you, I didn't always have it. I was kicked out of college. I was aimless. My mother, God bless her, she didn't give up on me, but she wasn't going to baby me either. She made it clear, you want something in this life, you're going to have to work for it. And that moment changed something in me. I started to see that having a dream wasn't enough. You've got to wake up every day and work toward it. You've got to show up when it's hard, when it's boring, when nobody's clapping. You've got to show up when there's no paycheck yet, no applause, no Instagram likes, just the grind. I remember working as an actor early on, and it wasn't glamorous. I wasn't on any big screens. I wasn't being recognized on the street. I was auditioning, getting rejected, auditioning again. There were times when I doubted myself. Times when I wondered if I was even good enough. The choice to keep showing up, to keep preparing, to keep sharpening my craft, that's what made the difference. Because here's the truth, discipline is doing what you said you were going to do long after the mood you set it in has left you. And most people, they quit when it gets uncomfortable. But greatness begins right there in discomfort. You want to be successful. Don't chase success. Chase discipline. Wake up early. Stay late. Do the thing you don't feel like doing. Do it scared. Do it tired. And don't look around to see if anyone's watching, because most of the time they won't be. But God sees. The universe sees. And every time you show up with integrity, with purpose, with consistency, the world starts to move around you. And let me tell you something else. Discipline isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. There were days when I messed up. There were days I didn't give my best. But I got back on track. That's the key. You fall, you rise. You fail, you learn. You get discouraged. You rest. But you never quit. Never. Because quitting is easy. Discipline is hard. But it's the hard that makes it worth it. People see the awards now, the success, the roles. But they don't see the years of work. They don't see the lonely nights, the rejections, the hundreds of times I had to choose to stay in the fight. They don't see the times I had to discipline my mind. Say no to distractions, no to the ego, no to instant gratification. That's the stuff no one claps for. But that's what builds you. That's what builds your legacy. So if you've got a dream, good, hold on to it. But don't stop there. Build a schedule, build habits, show up for your future self. Train like it depends on you, pray like it depends on God. Because the truth is it does. And when it gets hard, and it's will, remember that pain is temporary, but quitting lasts forever. Discipline. Discipline is what will carry you when motivation runs out. It's what will keep you moving when the applause fades. It's the real secret to turning that dream into destiny. So yeah, I had a dream. But more than that, I built discipline. And that's what made all the difference. I've learned in my life that failure is not something to be feared. It's something to be embraced. See, people look at me now, and they see the awards, the roles, the success. They see the highlight reel. But what they don't always see is the process that got me here, the struggle, the rejection, the doors that didn't open, the nights I questioned if I even belonged in this business. I've failed big, more than once. And if you think that I got here by playing it safe, by staying comfortable, by always winning, you're wrong. I got here because I was willing to flat on my face and get back up again. I wasn't afraid to take risks. I wasn't afraid to hear no. I wasn't afraid to look foolish because I knew that every failure had something to teach me. I remember early on, I auditioned for roles I thought I was perfect for, roles I believed I was born to play, and I didn't get them. Over and over, I'd walk out of those casting rooms with my head down, heart heavy. I'd think, maybe this isn't for me. But something inside of me said, keep going. I kept showing up. I kept preparing. I kept failing. And with every failure, I learned something new. I learned where I needed to grow. I learned what I needed to refine. I learned that my value wasn't tied to a single moment or opportunity. It was in my persistence. See, we live in a world that teaches us to be afraid of failure. From the time we're kids, we're told to get it right, to win, to succeed. But real success, lasting success, comes from those moments when you're down, when you're bruised, when it would be easier to walk away, and you decide to keep fighting. I didn't become the man I am because things came easy. I became the man I am because I kept pushing through the hard stuff. Because I failed and I didn't let it define me. I remember one of the biggest turning points in my life. It was an audition I really wanted. I was young, hungry, ready. I walked into that room and I gave everything I had. I walked out thinking, that's it. I nailed it. But they passed. They went with someone else, and I was crushed. For a moment, I thought about quitting. I really did. But then I realized something. If I gave up every time someone told me no, I'd never make it. So I started to see failure differently. I started to see it not as a stop sign, but as a detour. Not as rejection, but redirection. That's when everything changed for me. That shift in mindset. I stopped taking it personally. I stopped letting it weigh me down. I started seeing each failure as part of the training, part of the shaping. Every no made me stronger. Every closed door built my character. Every stumble built my stamina. And eventually, all those little failures added up to something bigger than I could imagine. So when I tell young people to fail big, I mean it. I'm not telling you to be reckless. I'm telling you to be brave, to go after the dream that scares you, to put yourself out there knowing it might not work the first time or the 10th time. Because what's the alternative? To live a life where you never try, where you never stretch. That's not living. That's surviving. And I didn't come here to survive. I came here to live, to lead, to leave something behind. And you can't do that by staying in your comfort zone. The truth is, failure has been one of my greatest teachers. It has humbled me. It has sharpened me. It has kept me hungry. And it has reminded me that I'm still growing, still evolving even now. So don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to look foolish. Don't be afraid to dream so big it makes people uncomfortable. Because real success, the kind that lasts, the kind that fulfills, it only comes on the other side of failure. You've got to earn it. You've got to fall for it. And most importantly, you've got to rise every single time. Put God first. That's what I've learned, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I've seen a lot of things in my life. I've walked through some tough storms, stood on big stages, won awards, heard the applause, but none of that means anything if you're not spiritually grounded. People talk about hustle, about grind, about doing everything on their own. That's fine. But I know I didn't make it here by myself. I know I didn't wake myself up this morning. I know I didn't give myself these gifts. That came from something higher, something greater than me. That came from God. There were times in my life where I didn't know where I was headed. I was lost, distracted, thinking I knew it all. I was young, ambitious, but aimless. And I remember my mother praying over me. I remember those nights when I didn't even know I was being protected, when I was making reckless choices and yet somehow still being shielded. That wasn't luck. That wasn't coincidence. That was grace. That was purpose working in silence. And I'll never forget the day a woman in a beauty salon looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "Young man, you're going to travel the world and speak to millions." I laughed. I didn't understand it then. I wasn't thinking about movies or speeches or stages. I was just trying to get by. But those words planted a seed, a prophecy. And over the years, I saw it unfold, not because I was perfect, not because I had all the answers, but because I learned to put God first. See, the world tells you to chase success. It tells you to follow money, fame, validation. But all of that fades. All of that breaks down. You can gain the whole world and lose your soul. And I was never interested in looking successful. I wanted to be successful. That meant I had to align myself with something eternal, something unshakable, something real. God gave me direction when I was lost. He gave me peace when my mind was full of noise. He gave me humility when pride tried to take over. He gave me strength when I wanted to quit. People often say to me, "Denzel, how do you stay grounded?" I tell them, it's because I know where my blessings come from. I know I don't deserve all that I have, but I'm grateful for it. And gratitude leads to humility. Every morning, before I touch my phone, before I check my messages, I get on my knees and I thank God, not just for the good, but for the lessons, for the struggles, for the valleys, because it was in those low places that my character was built. It was in those silent seasons that I heard God the loudest. This world will try to tell you that putting God first is weakness, that relying on faith means you're out of touch. But I'm here to tell you, faith is strength. Faith is power. Faith is the foundation that held me up when everything else was shaking. I've seen doors open that no man could have opened. I've seen opportunities that didn't make sense on paper. I've watched dreams unfold that I didn't even dare to dream for myself. That's divine alone. That's divine alignment. You got to understand something. Your talent will take you so far, but your character, your faith, your integrity, that's what will sustain you. That's what will keep you when the applause stops. I've been blessed to play kings and warriors, detectives and fathers, heroes and villains. But none of those roles define me. My identity isn't in a character, it's in Christ. My security doesn't come from a contract, it comes from the Creator. And when you walk with that kind of clarity, you don't need to compete. You don't need to chase. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, because you know who's walking with you. So if you're listening to this and you feel stuck or overlooked, if you're grinding but feel empty, I want to tell you this. Don't forget your source. Don't let the world pull you away from what matters most. Put God first in everything you do, in your decisions, in your relationships, in your work, in your rest. Seek Him and watch what happens. Watch the peace that comes. Watch the doors that open. Watch how your definition of success transforms. I'm not saying the road will be easy, but I promise you'll never walk it alone. You know, when people see you on the screen, standing there with trophies, giving speeches in a tuxedo, they think that's what success looks like. But let me tell you something I've learned over the years, something they don't teach you in school or on the set. Success without humility doesn't last. It doesn't satisfy. I've worked with a lot of talented people, and I've seen many of them rise fast and fall even faster. not because they weren't gifted, not because they didn't work hard, but because they forgot who they were. They started believing the applause, the headlines, the hype. And when the world starts clapping for you, if you don't have humility in your heart, it's easy to start clapping for yourself. And that's when you lose the plot. I wasn't always like this. I wasn't always grounded. I had moments where I got caught up in the noise too. Early in my career, when things started to click, I felt invincible. People were calling my name, offering me roles, patting me on the back, and there's a voice in your head that starts whispering, "Yeah, you did that. You earned this. You're special." But that's the most dangerous voice, because it drowns out the voice that says, "Stay grounded, stay grateful." I had to learn, sometimes the hard way, that the real power is not in being the loudest in the room. It's in being the most steady, the most humble. I remember my mother used to tell me, "Boy, you better not let that success go to your head." And I'd roll my eyes as a kid, but she was right. She always was. Because when everything is going right, when the world is throwing roses at your feet, that's the time you need to keep your feet on the ground. That's the time you need to look in the mirror and remind yourself where you came from, who raised you, who helped you, who prayed for you when nobody even knew your name. I didn't get here alone. No one does. Every award I've received, every role I've played, every stage I've stood on, it came from the grace of God, from my family's strength, and from people who believed in me when I was just another face in the audition room. You've got to respect people. I've seen actors treat assistants like they're invisible, walk past janitors like they're part of the floor, and smile only when the cameras are rolling. That's not real. That's performance. Success is how you treat people when you think you don't need anything from them. I make it a point to shake hands with everyone on set, from the director to the grip to the caterer, because they're all part of the story. Nobody gets to the top alone. And if you think you're above anyone, that's the moment you start falling. Humility isn't weakness. It's strength. It means you understand that your talent is a gift, not a guarantee. It means you wake up every day knowing you still have something. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still trying to be a better man, a better father, a better servant to God. You don't arrive. You evolve. And the moment you think you've made it, really made it, that's the moment you stop growing. I've met people who had all the money, all the fame, all the success this world can offer, and they were miserable. You know why? Because they didn't have humility. They had fans, but not friends. They had followers, but no foundation. I don't want that. I'd rather be respected than envied. I'd rather be remembered as someone who lifted others than someone who only lifted trophies. So yeah, work hard. Push yourself. Go after your dreams with everything you've got. But stay grounded, stay kind, stay humble. Because the real measure of success isn't what you have. It's who you are when you have it. And if you can carry your blessings without letting them carry you away from your values, then you've already won. That, to me, is what real success looks like.